All right, now we're on a roll a little bit, so I want to continue. I have more to say on Israel and political and other decisions, military decisions. We'll wait for another time on that. I want to do something as long as I have the strength for it. The next hour on the parsha, eikev and reah, combine them together and make up for lost time and missed videos from the last couple of weeks, but also because it's very important in this series I'm going to be giving on Eretz Yisrael and different aspects of Eretz Yisrael, living in the land, conquering the land, the will of Hashem for the land. And okay, so let's just get going here. Now in eikev, Parshas eikev, it's unusual language in part of the chapter of eikev, the parsha of eikev. The thing is that Hashem usually when he says, do my mitzvahs, he says mitzvos plural. But all over the rest of Sefer Devarim, we're going to see if you do this mitzvah, this great mitzvah, if you do this mitzvah properly, everything will go well with you. And the question is, what mitzvah is Hashem referring to? And the answer given by many of the Meforshim is that the great mitzvah at this point in juncture in Jewish history was conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael for Hashem's malchus, for his kingdom, and building the Beis HaMikdash. So it's specifically, whenever you see in Sefer Devarim the lashon of mitzvah singular instead of mitzvos plural, it's talking about the mitzvah of conquering Eretz Yisrael. So let's go with what is understood by Chazal, as Rameir Kahana taught in his Sforim and in his lectures online, what the great mitzvah of conquering Eretz Yisrael entails. So there's a medrash that says that after Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, they had obviously a 30-day mourning period for him. They crossed the Yarden under the Jordan River under miraculous events and circumstances, and they did bris milah and kept Pesach of that year. Moshe Rabbeinu again died in Zion Adar, the 7th of Adar. They had a 30-day mourning period till the week before Pesach. They crossed the river a couple days before Pesach. They did bris milah 2 or 3 days before Pesach, and then they did the Korban Pesach inside Eretz Yisrael. And after Pesach, maybe before Pesach, depends when the month ended, they might have had ability to take some of the grain of Eretz Yisrael already and make matzahs, but I don't remember clearly right now. But certainly after Pesach, when they were set and ready to start conquering the land, that's when the month ended. And they were dependent now on growing their own wheat, and Eretz Yisrael had a lot of wheat because the Canaanim did the work for us, and they took the wheat as they needed and made bread. And maybe they made also matzah on that Pesach. Anyway, Yoshua in the first and second chapters of the book of Joshua, Yeshua, made preparations to go into Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Canaan, and conquer it. In the first place, it was Jericho, which was right across the Jordan River from where they were staying on the other side of the Jordan River, and it's like the first city they came to. And it's in the middle of the country, dividing north from south. They conquered Jericho and turned south and had a pretty easy job of wiping out the kings of the south. And then they turned to the north, and all 31 of these kings, maybe only 25 or 26 because 5 or 6 of the kings were in the south, they got together and they made an attempt to stand together to fight against Yoshua, and they were wiped out. So that's the northern campaign. You look in the book of Yoshua, you get the picture of what's going on. So here we have what Yoshua did. First he sent spies, which seems incongruent based on the last time they sent spies, which ended up disastrous for Klal Yisrael in the desert. But he sent Pinchas and Kalev ben Yefunah, and he had no problem with their trust and faith, their emunah and betachon in Hashem. So they went and they were just there for one reason and one reason only. What is the mood of the people? They now saw another miracle of water standing up, and they went in. The Jewish people traveled across the river of Jordan and came into Eretz Yisrael proper. And so now what was the mood like? And they found out from Rachav in that inn that they stayed in and were hidden in when the Jordanian army, or whatever you want to call them, the Canaanite army, was searching for them to try and capture them. So she said, yeah, every soul here is, they're melted. They're deathly afraid of your God. And so Yeshua knew that it's time to strike. It's time to make war, as Hashem has commanded. And we have to understand again the purpose of conquering the land. Instead of going somewhere else, they all could have traveled to California, which might have been empty at that time. But they didn't go to the United States. They went to Israel because that's the will of Hashem. And Hashem wants a malchus, a kingdom for himself set up somewhere on earth, a foothold for Hashem in the world, driven out of his world that he created by the sins of mankind, the deliberate sins of mankind, deliberately sinning to drive Hashem away from the world that he created and that he loves and that he wanted to be a part of. And we had to bring back Hashem to have a foothold. So we can't have any filthy pagans and idolaters there at the time we're having the Torah being practiced and implemented into Eretz Yisrael and conquered Eretz Yisrael. We can't have them there waiting to rise up and revolt against us and try and win back Eretz Yisrael 20, 30 years later after they stop being afraid of us or we weaken or do something wrong. So Hashem said, get rid of them. So Yeshua, in harmony with and in complying with Hashem's wishes, he sent 3 letters to the Canaanites, to the Canaanite. The first letter says, whoever wants to stay on the land of Israel, make peace, throw your weapons down now, and don't fire a single arrow at us, throw a single spear, and you can live as our slaves. You can't live as free, independent people, because again, you're on the land before we get here. You're always going to consider that your land that we stole from you. Therefore, these are the 3 options you have. You can become our abject slaves, Eved Kanani, that's where the term comes from, Canaanite slaves. If you willingly do not make war with us, you'll be a partial Jew, converted to Judaism, and you will work for us and for our king and for Hashem, and you'll do all manual labor for us, and that'll be your lot and fate in life. But you'll be allowed to live in Eretz Yisrael. Second option is flee. Just pick up your bags and flee. We won't molest you. We won't try and kill you, pursue you. We'll let you leave. The Rambam has a whole thing that after we control more of Eretz Yisrael and we're able to impose the will of God on the rest of the world to at least keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, we were going to go find these fled Canaanim and kill them because they're irredeemable what they did in Eretz Yisrael, all the Molech worship and human sacrifices, child sacrifices. Hashem wanted them removed. But in order to consolidate our rulership and control and conquest of Eretz Yisrael, we have to let them go. Anyone willing to flee, flee. And the rest of you that want to fight, you're going to die. Get ready to die. And that's what the 3 letters were about. 1 letter to be a slave, 1 letter to flee, the 3rd letter to fight, to make war. And then that's exactly what he did. He proceeded to make war. And that's the exact point of this whole discussion of who is allowed to stay on Eretz Yisrael as a Gentile. The first and foremost rule is they have to renounce idolatry and accept the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. And according to the Rambam, at least, that acceptance includes not having any other holidays besides the holidays that are in the Torah. So you can't have Christmas and Easter and Ramadan and all these other, even if it's a monotheistic, supposedly sort of, kind of monotheistic religion, it's still paganism in our eyes. There is no history except Hashem's history as given through the Torah, the history of the world. And therefore you can't have any other holidays to any other gods or to say that Hashem made these holidays for you, because he didn't. You made them up yourself and attributed it to your God, either Hashem or some quasi-Hashem that the Muslims have that is one God, but it's Allah, but it's not Hashem, because they say their God is greater than our God. So that means they don't serve our God. And even if they would think of it as our God, the things that they say they're allowed to do in the name of our God is a chilul Hashem, is murder, is all sorts of cruelty and evil, ugly, disgusting actions in the name of God. So their concept of what God is and what he allows or demands or permits is warped. So they're not worshiping Hashem. They're either worshiping the big God that Muhammad supposedly threw out all the gods out of the Kaaba, and he left Allah only, and he threw out all the other ones. So they do worship one God, but it's a moon god, a male moon god. It's a statue in the Kaaba that they on Ramadan chase around and on their Mecca, to Mecca, their Hajj that they make to pilgrimage to Mecca. It's all falsehood. It's all sheker muchlat, and it's idolatry. So you can't practice that in Eretz Yisrael either, and you can't practice Christianity, even the most benign, non-iconological based Christianity, with Yashka being a person, not a god or son of God. It's still avodah zarah, the whole thing, and it's not allowed to be practiced in Eretz Yisrael. Whether or not Hashem allows it for the goyim in the meantime, that they don't know any better, to step up from all the paganism, maybe it is. And the Rambam writes at the end of his magnum opus, he writes, we don't know why Hashem allowed this to happen in history, but maybe it's because they'll be the first peoples that will recognize the real truth when Hashem brings Mashiach, and they'll come and they'll say, our fathers taught us a pack of lies. We'll go with you now and learn the truth and serve you and serve your God and accept the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. That's what it requires. To stay in Eretz Yisrael is on an individual basis for these Gentiles, not as groups of communities or nations. They're not allowed to be in Eretz Yisrael. Only Eretz Yisrael is for the Jewish people, for all our tribes. Individual non-Jews, Gentiles, can apply to live in Eretz Yisrael under what's called Ger Toshav status. First, they have to become a B'nai Noach. First, they have to renounce idolatry, like I've been saying, and absorb and accept the rest of the 6 laws of Noach, not to blaspheme God, not to murder, not to worship of idolatry, not to kidnap, not to do immorality, all sorts of immorality laws, and to have a solid court system of justice, of true justice, and not to eat flesh of living animals or drink their blood. So therefore, the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach became axiomatic for any Gentile to be accepted to live into Eretz Yisrael, actually accepted to live anywhere in the world. A non-B'nai Noach, someone who does not accept these principles, is really not allowed to live in God's world. Whatever reason Hashem gives them a full lifetime to do their idolatry, I don't know why, but he does. Meanwhile, through the 2,000 years of our exile, we have nothing to say about it. We don't have the power to impose Hashem's will on them. But the Rambam said one day we were supposed to have had that kind of control for Hashem, for the sake of Hashem. But meanwhile, our main goal and our main commandment and mitzvah is to make that so that we control and impose any Gentile that's living in Eretz Yisrael with the laws of the Torah. Not that they're becoming Jews and keeping the Torah. They're not. Most of them would not be allowed to convert in good times. They forbade Gentiles to convert in the time of King David and King Solomon because there was just too much, temptation to belong to the winners, to belong to the people who ruled the world. So we questioned their motives, and we didn't allow them to convert. The same thing will happen when Mashiach comes. It's too late then. They can't convert anymore because it's too easy to say that you believe in us and our God when we've already vanquished and won and conquered the world. But the bottom line is here, in Eretz Yisrael, we were always supposed to impose Hashem's will over the land, which meant the only people who are allowed to stay on the land of Eretz Yisrael after we conquer it are not the people inside of Eretz Yisrael. They have to be all thrown out. But those coming after we consolidate control and power over the land. Then, as individuals, they can apply for the privilege, not their right. They can't demand a right to live in Eretz Yisrael. We'll check them out, and if they check out and they will positively impact life in Eretz Yisrael, then they're allowed to come under the Kanfei Hashchina, under the wings of Hashem's divine presence, and get close to Hashem with the status of more than Ben Noach. The status that they have to achieve is what's called Ger Toshav, a resident alien. A Ger doesn't mean a convert here, it means a stranger, a non-Jew. And Toshav is someone who dwells, someone who lives as a Gentile on the land of Eretz Yisrael under these precise procedures and rules and regulations. And one of them is that they promise to give service to the country, whether it's to the king directly or to individual, not as slaves, but just as a tribute, as a servitude that they have to give. And the rest of the time they're able to live free on their own little land and belong to the nation of Israel as adjuncts, as add-ons. And they have to take this oath in Beis Din that they swear off idolatry and they accept upon themselves the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. And then they're allowed in. But B'zman Hazeh, we're not allowed to let them in. The Beis Din is not allowed to sit, the Rambam says, to process them, to give them the status of Ger Toshav. They can't achieve it right now. The Beis Din is not allowed to convene for these purposes. Why? Because the majority of the Jewish people are not living in that land of Israel. More than the majority is needed in Eretz Yisrael for laws like the Shemitah and Yovel laws, the Sabbaths of the land to be, and the other agricultural laws would all be derisa then, Mina Torah, commandments from the Torah. All the agricultural laws now are only rabbinic to keep them going so that we can remember them when it comes time to do them for real, when the rules are, or the, not the rules, when all the tenets of the law of Ger Toshav, the tenets of the law of Yovel and Shemitah that calls for the majority in the world, the majority of Jews living in Eretz Yisrael, is the bottom line for when these laws become effective again from the Torah level and carry more severe penalties for not keeping them, and from the D'Rabbanan, the rabbinic level, which they are now in our current status of not quite 50%. It's almost on the verge. But Rambam says all the tribes have to be back on their nachalos, on the inherited their ancestral portions given to the tribe of Ephraim, Menashe, Yehuda, everybody, all 12 tribes. Then a Ger Toshav can apply for then a Ben Noach can apply from outside of Eretz Yisrael to come to the Beis Din inside Eretz Yisrael, take the oath, and live inside Eretz Yisrael. That's the only time it'll be necessary. So the Meforshim on the Rambam say, what would the Rambam hold? He's not clear. In this whole long exile process, would he allow a Ben Noach who cannot, through no fault of his own, cannot take the oath. He surely would if he was allowed to, able to. Can he stay now? Bisman is that when we don't have the court's not allowed to sit to process them. So one of the main commentaries, the Beis Yosef, no, not the Beis Yosef, the what's he called? The Kesef Mishnah and the either the Lechem Mishnah or the Mishnah Lamelech, Magid Mishnah. There are several, 3 or 4 commentaries. One's Rav Yosef Karo, the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch. He's the Kesef Mishnah, and he says the Rambam would have allowed it, Bizman Hazeh, because it's not their fault that they can't take the oath to be a Ger Toshav, so they can stay meanwhile. And the Lechem Mishnah or the Magid Mishnah, whichever one I'm thinking of, he said, no, you're not allowed to do it. The Rambam would have said no, and we would have to impose our will. No goy is allowed to sleep overnight in the land of Israel. If they're doing business in Israel, they have to sleep in Jordan, in Egypt, and come in the morning and leave by nightfall. And that's the best we can do for them. That's we poskim, but with the Kesef Mishnah. But it's still very clear that an idolater is not allowed to sleep there, even today. We don't implement it. We don't impose it upon them because we don't have the authority, because we have a government that's not worth its weight in salt and has no appreciation for the laws of Hashem, and therefore lets things go against the Torah that potentially get us in trouble. All these wars and terrorism and everything is because of them. Is because they don't keep the laws or ask the Jewish people living there to keep the laws and implement them and impose them upon the people of Israel. And that's why we're wide open to all this upheaval all throughout our history in Israel since even before 1948. And so what we have here is the mitzvah to conquer Eretz Yisrael. And there's 2 sides to the same coin. Kivush Haaretz v'yishuv Haaretz. We'll get into a whole long discussion, not today, about whether it's a mitzvah today to live in Eretz Yisrael, or in general, throughout all time, is there a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael? We'll get into that. But suffice it to say, for today, it goes along with the Kivush Haaretz. There's a mitzvah clearly throughout the whole Torah, not just Sefer Devarim. The Jewish people were told about that. They're on their way. They're going to eventually go to Eretz Yisrael, and they're going to have to conquer it for Hashem, for themselves and for Hashem, to put Torah in practice in Eretz Yisrael, clear the land of people who would prevent us or would be a bad influence towards the spiritual level of Torah, Judaism being practiced in the world. And if there's a mitzvah to conquer the land, surely there's a mitzvah to live there. There's no reason to conquer the land for Hashem if we're going to end up in Las Vegas. What the heck? Why would we kill all these people for Hashem if we're not going to live there? That's one of the main proofs that there is a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael, because there definitely is a mitzvah to conquer it for Hashem. So that's that. And it's called the great mitzvah. It's the mitzvah. You keep this mitzvah, and I'll bless you. That's what it is. When it mentions mitzvah singular, it's referring to this mitzvah of conquest, of conquering the land of Eretz Yisrael for Hashem. Now, a little bit more. So, after that fact, there is the question of the people we conquered, who is allowed to remain on the land with us as we build a Torah society there? And the answer is clear. Anyone there who fought against us cannot remain there. They can't make a peace and say now they surrender and they capitulate and they're going to be good boys and girls now. No, they had their chance. Yeshua gave them a chance to accept the letter. They blew it. They fired upon us. They have to go or they have to die. Period. End of discussion. There's no room like the stupidity of the Arabs in Eretz Yisrael, how we've treated them all these years, giving them chance after chance after chance of trying to clearly, it shows and demonstrates, regardless of whether monotheists or idolaters, it doesn't matter. The point is they're on the land before we got there. They're always going to hate us and resent us. They're always going to say what we stole their land. Can't you understand that, Israeli government? Can't you see clearly? Obviously, they're not insane people. They're not incompetent people. They must be doing it on purpose because it's treason to leave them on the land. And that's their goal. Because it's obvious we can't live together. Rabbi Kahana said, he said that anyone who thinks or says, anyone who says that peace between the Arabs and the Jews is still possible, is a demagogue, is a self-serving, selfish, self-centered person just saying what he needs to say to further his or her career in the Israeli political machine. Because if you say they must go, they ban you, like they did to Rabbi Kahana. He says, my solution is the only solution that avoids bloodshed from Arab to Jew and Jew to Arab, and that's complete, entire separation of the two peoples. They cannot live together in peace, both claiming the same land is theirs exclusively, and the other are interlopers, usurpers, squatters. And so you have to get rid of them. They have 22 Muslim and Arab countries they could go to. They are Arabs. They are Muslims. They're not. There's no such thing as Palestine. Palestine, we've said it before, Palestine is what Hadrian, the Roman emperor, who hated us for revolting against him 3 times in 60 years. We almost brought the Roman Empire down each time we revolted, and these are 3 times after the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. From 70 to 135, we revolted 3 times, inspiring all the nations, the Gentiles in the whole entire Mediterranean ringing the Mediterranean to revolt with us, and almost defeated the Germans, especially the last time under Bar Kokhba, when we threw them out of Eretz Yisrael and took them a year and a half or 2 years to come back, to regroup and to attempt to invade again. We had won. If Bar Kokhba would have had listened to Akiva, Rabbi Akiva, and built the Beis Hamikdash, there was only supposed to be 3 in history. So even if they do come back, they're not going to be able to defeat us to the point of destroying the 3rd Beis Hamikdash that in the interim we build while they're gone. And because Bar Kokhba refused to do it and got haughty, it turned into a disaster instead of a victory. Instead of being Mashiach, he became a failed, not a false Mashiach. He was a failed Mashiach. We've had a few of those along the way. And Rabbi Akiva thought he was Mashiach, had reason to believe that. He taught it in Bnei Brak, that's mentioned in the Haggadah, all these sages at Rabbi Akiva's house or at his hiding out cave. It's in the Haggadah, early in the Haggadah, convincing all of them to send their students also to the war. And they won. They got slaughtered later when the Romans came back because of Hashem rejecting Bar Kokhba. So the point is, there's no such thing as Palestine. Hadrian, after that war, said 2 things. He said, 1, it must be God that conquered or destroyed or killed Bar Kokhba, made him fall, made him fail, because none of us, no human being on earth could have stopped him. He was that powerful. We tried, we lost. There must be a God, and his will was to go against him. That's the first thing he did. But it was far from a convert or a Baal Tshuva. He immediately renamed Judea to wipe the name Judea off the face of the map, face of the earth. And he named it Palestinia. He named it after the Philistine, after the Philistines who were long gone by them, who had invaded Gaza long ago and had ruled it up until the time after David HaMelech, when they weakened and then they lost their hold on the land. But the history told the story. The Romans still knew the story. So Hadrian, named it Philistinia. Presumably, if you want to say that, Arafat would have made himself the laughing stock of the world if Hadrian had not changed the name to Philistinia. He couldn't have come along and call himself the Palestinian Liberation Organization or Army. He had cover because of what Hadrian did. If it was Judea, he couldn't call himself the Judean Arab Liberation Organization. What liberation? Of Judean land? That you're not a Judean, you're an Arab from outside of Judea? He would have been a disgrace and he would have been laughed off the stage. The biggest favor that ever came to him is what Hadrian did to try and get rid of the name Judea. Eretz Yehuda became Eretz Philistinia, after the Philistines. Anyway, that's the point. There is no Palestine. They're Arabs. They're from Arabia. They're from Yishmael. They're from Egypt. They're from Iraq. They're from Syria. They came into the land when times were good, when they could find work, and the land after 1922 was reviving. And so there was things to do there. The British let them in. It's not the truth that they were there from time immemorial for thousands of years. All that is lies. The land lay fallow in a disgraceful dearth and a complete destruction. Nothing grew there. People wondered how come Hashem has destroyed this land so much. And the answer is that it was the biggest blessing. It kept any nations from coming in there and making a going concern of Eretz Yisrael and making it into a place where people could live and grow crops and have a pleasant life. He made it. The curse he made on the land was our biggest bracha all throughout the Gullus, the exile, to save it for us when it was time to come home. And the Navi in Yecheskel says there is no greater proof that the time for the redemption is time when the land starts giving out its fruit again in abundance and in bounty, and is fertile again, the land. And that's what happened after 1922, and that's the greatest sign that the Geula process has started and is wending its way to completion. We don't know when, but that's the goal, and that's what was going on in Eretz Yisrael. The land is ours, and we can't live on two people thinking, both of us, that it's theirs. Each one says it's mine. Got to throw one group off. We only have one country that is ours. It's not Poland, it's not the United States. It is Israel, the land of Eretz Yisrael, specifically in the southern region called Eretz Yehuda. Judea and Samaria was also Shomron, part of what we had as our biblical lands. And thus, they have to go. No different then than now. Arabs have the same status of the Canaanites. They will never make peace because they were there before us, slightly before us, and therefore they'll always resent us. The Barbanel says that it's pashut. I don't need a pasuk for it. The pasuk only talks about, it alludes to there'll be a thorn in your side, which means warring on you all the time. But it doesn't give that openly as a reason. It said there'll be thorns in your, and there'll be needles in your eyes, meaning the eye that searches for truth and gets tempted with avodah zorah. They'll lead you to avodah zorah. Those two things. The pasuk says you have to get rid of them because they're going to be immoral and entice you to their immorality, which is all which is all dependent upon and surrounded by their religion, their idolatry, right? You go pick and choose the guy. It says in the Torah that, in the Gemara, that the Jews never believed in idolatry, even when they practiced it. They did it for the self-serving purpose that God doesn't allow certain things. And if they pretend to believe in this avodah zarah, they can say, oh, well, this God allows us to have immorality, so we'll worship him and pretend we believe in him. Not that we really believe in him, we know it's false, but we need him. We need this idol so we can do immorality, because we can't stand the harshness of Hashem's laws preventing us from just going wild sexually, etc. And that's why we believed in avodah zarah, for our own selfish purposes, for our own pleasure. So anyway, so that's the story that Barbanel says. He was part of the Inquisition, not the Inquisition, the expulsion from Spain, 1492. Great sage, Torah commentator. Whole book that Barbanel is on his parish, on his commentary on the Chumash. And he wrote that if a king comes along and saves you, or prince or whatever, from some brigands, from some pirates, highwaymen, he saves you from them. They're about to kill you and rob you. So when they're stopped and go away, you, the saved one, the one that he rescued, has no right to make a treaty with those people who attacked him that the king saved you from without his permission. And Hashem over and over again says in the Chumash, and you should not make a pact with them, and not a peace treaty, nothing. Because I'm the one conquering the land for you. So therefore, leave them alone, kick them out, throw them out, and don't make any treaty with them, any accord with them. Plus, the other reason is because you're being fooled. They don't mean peace when they finally make a peace treaty with you. They mean to wait their time, bide their time, wait it out till you weaken and rise up and take back what they consider always to have been and still is their land, despite the fact that you're ruling over it now for a few hundred years. They're always going to maintain this harbor this hatred and wait for a chance to fight back and take it back. And that's the time of the Canaanim, and it's no different than the time of the Arabs. They're exactly the same motives, exactly the same mindset, clear as day, and we miss it. The stupid leftists in Israel, the secular government, the rishis government, Arab, with their own reasons for letting these people stay on the land and kill Jews daily, harm Jews daily, attack them, terrorism, whatever, now war, missiles, unremitting missiles. How long would the United States put up with Mexico lobbing missiles into San Diego? 5 minutes before they wipe Mexico off the face of the earth? Well, that's what we should have done 20 years ago. That's what we should have done in 1967. The golden opportunity slipped right through our fingers because of our arrogance and evil of our government. They would have willingly thanked us for not slaughtering them all because of what they tried to do to us before and during the 6-Day War. And they would have willingly run out of Eretz Yisrael as fast as they possibly could. And the world wouldn't have said anything because they knew, they couldn't deny the truth that this was a planned war of eradication, of annihilation, extinction for the Jewish people, that they were planning to do what Hitler did and finish the job. He said it openly. 2 or 3 weeks leading up to the war, they were celebrating in all the Arab capitals, running around celebrating. We're going to wipe out the Jews, chase them and throw them into the sea and wash our feet in their blood. Great Mongol horde victory. And so it's disgusting to leave them on the land, to give them any hope that they're going to be able to one day undo the victory we have had. And we have to fight, and more soldiers have to die over the same land to try and keep it or take it back or pacify it yet again. When the job was done in 67, it was over. And they took it to their insane, obscene levels of hypocrisy and disregard for their own people, their callous indifference to the welfare of their own people, not caring that they suffer for 50, 60 years after the effect of the Six-Day War, which could have meant not one more attack or war. Maybe they were trying from further away, 500 miles away, 1,000 miles away. Maybe they would have tried. It would have been infinitely harder for them to start up with us if we had thrown them all the hell away out of our land after 67. We had enough of you. Problem is, we can't do that till we throw the hell away our government. Our Erev government has no right to rule anymore. The first order of business for any government is to take care of its own and secure it and guarantee its safety and survival. And if it won't do that or will not do that for whatever reason, they have to go. They have no moral authority left to rule, and we have to rise up against them and kick them out. That's what has to happen, or we're not going to make it. We're not going to survive. They have, like I've been telling you, they have plans how we're not going to survive, and they're following their orders of their slave masters above them, and they're planning on eradicating and destroying themselves or us underneath them. And then they'll go skipping in and singing all the way to the south of France in their nice villas. And job well done. They'll be honored and feted, and you did what the slime wanted you to do for yourself. You allowed Israel to be destroyed, God forbid. But that's their plan. That's their goal. So getting back to the idea of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, there is no Gentile who was there and fought, even if he was peaceful. His nation, there were 7 different nations of Canaan. If their nation fought, they were supposed to go or be killed. They cannot, no longer, even if they personally didn't fight, they cannot stay on the land anymore to get the Eved Kanani status. They're not allowed to. They were never allowed to get Ger Toshav status, but they're not even allowed to now get Eved Kanani anymore. It's off the table. There's no further negotiation or discussion. You attacked us. Your people did, whether you personally did or not. Your people from the first Canaanite nation, the second up to 7, you all attacked us. We fought you. You're all gone. You either leave now or we're going to slaughter you all. At least that was the mitzvah. We didn't follow through, and we got in trouble because of that. We didn't follow through, and it became a terrible thing, to the point in the second chapter of Judges, after Yeshua died, and the elders all died out from that were alive at Har Sinai, we were told by Hashem that we have blown it now. I told you to conquer all these Canaanim, and you didn't do it. You let your guard down. You said it's too hard. Some of them are they're so ingrained. They're so secured and walled in, and whatever the word is I'm trying to think of. They are so entrenched that you say it's too hard to get them out. I don't care. I gave you a commandment to do it. Team up with yourselves like Yeshua told you, and help each other out on your territory to get your Canaanim out, and then go help them on their Canaanim. I didn't give you an excuse because it's too hard. I said get them out. Especially the Yevusi that stayed in Yerushalayim. They were really, locked in. They were really, secure up there in the mountains of the Judean hills, and it was very hard to get them out. Tremendously hard, And because they didn't, Hashem said, it's too late now. Now you'll see what will happen to you. What I intended to do to them, I'll have to do to you because you're going to follow them and sin and become idolaters. And I'm going to have to exile you and burn the temple down, the base of Mikdash. And it's all for fallen. They cried, they tried to do tshuva, it didn't help. Hashem said, I told you, I gave you all this warning. I gave you about 30 years to do it. From the time Yeshua led you in, to the time he retired, and then a few years later he died, and then the rest of the Zakanim, till they died out. I gave you this mitzvah to do, and you failed to do it for me. And we're suffering throughout Jewish history because of this. We didn't have one exile, now we had 2 exiles. Now we have a third upheaval in Eretz Yisrael over the third commonwealth that we're trying to establish since 1948. And it's the ground under our feet is shifting. Nothing is secure. Clearly, things like the writings of Binyamin, Rabbi Binyamin Kahana, is that if you're not going to sur me'ra v'aseh tov, remove the evil first, then do good by conquering the land. If you're not going to throw them out, and then you're going to build up the land and live in the land, it's not going to help. You're going to lose portions of the land, even if you're not threatened, meanwhile, because you conquered this land, because you didn't finish the job by throwing them out. You are now going to suffer the consequences. We lost the Sinai. Doesn't matter, it looked like political peacemaking. Hashem punished us. We had leaders that willingly did these things to us, of getting rid of the Sinai, giving away the northern Gaza where we were, that led to all the missiles and all the upheaval that led to October 7th. We did not have our borders secure because of these, of the Gush Katif thing. Amona, other places in Hebron and Yerushalayim where we've given in to the Arabs. This is all a sign of a punishment to us because we did not allow for the will of God to be our commandment. We were more worried about the will of the nations, that we shouldn't be too harsh on these people and we should reach peace accords with them, even though they're impossible. Like Reb Meir said, the only solution that is worth a darn, that saves Jewish lives and Arab lives, is complete separation of the two peoples. He said that he quotes the Rashi, Seporno, and the Orach Chaim about the conquest of Eretz Yisrael, that mitzvah. The end of Sefer B'Midbar, Parshas Masai, 33, 52 through 56. It says that, the Rashi says, if you won't conquer the land and drive them out, if you won't get rid of them, you're not going to be able to stay on the land. Not inherit it to your kids. You yourself just conquered it, will not be allowed and able to stay on the land because they're going to cause you so much difficulty by the fact that you didn't listen to Hashem and you left them in place on the land next to you. The Seporno says if you don't drive them out, not only are you personally not going to be able to stay on the land, there's no hope in hell that you're going to or hope in heaven, I should say. There's no successful operation that you can do to ensure that your children inherit this land from you. There's no kiyum, there's no establishment of a continuity here. It's going to be never solid. It's never going to be secure because you didn't listen to Hashem and you didn't do what he says here to drive them all out, kill them all out, or drive them all out. Therefore, the land will not go to your children and grandchildren. And the Orach Chaim talks about the harassment. They're going to harass you on the land. If you do not kick them out, drive them out, Shem says in those Pesukim, I will do to you what I intended to do to them because you didn't listen to me. And not only will they yell at you about their land that they're still on, that you shouldn't come and conquer it from them because you're thieves and you stole it, you're trying to steal it from us. But even the land you have successfully conquered from them, they will say about it, you're thieves and get out and get off. You have no right to be here. These are the rules. Any people that were on the land before we came back are not allowed under almost any circumstances, except one where they become our slaves, to stay in Eretz Yisrael. They have to go. There's no making peace with the people who think we stole the land from them. And we didn't steal the land from them. They stole the land from Shem originally. They were working with Nimrod in Ur costumes, stealing Shemite land over there, building the Tower of Babel, making a kingdom, etc., trying to kill Avram. But then at the Tower falling, they came over to the other Shemite holdings, where Shem was and his grandson Aver. They had yeshivas teaching B'nai Noach Torah. And you stole it from them. Now, those Shemites Hashem punished, not Shem and Aver, but other of their descendants over there, because they too went into idolatry. And Hashem wanted to clear them out of the land. And 400 years later, get ready to bring Klal Yisrael, Avram Avinu's children and grandchildren, who come from Shem. We come from Shem. So the Canaanim stole the land from Shemites. And besides that, it doesn't matter that even if they hadn't stolen the land from Shemites, if Shem had turned around and said, you know what, we'll share the land with you. Noach gave it to us. Our father gave it to us. But yeah, I understand he gave you poor lands in the south, Egypt, and the Sahara Desert. Okay, you can part with Eretz Yisrael. You can have a portion. Even if all that had happened back then, it still would be that they have to all go. It still would be that we are not stealing the land from them when we come to take it back or undo the treaty that Shem had made. It's not a duplicitous act. It's not a betrayal. Shem owns the world. He made the world. The Arabs like to say, what, God's a real estate agent? Yeah, he's the original one because he created it all, and it's up to him who and where any peoples go and for how long. He gave the Canaanim the land for 400 years. Then he gave it to us, and even though he exiled us twice, he never said it's a permanent exile. You'll always come back, and he had prophecies in the Bible about it for both returns.